Wake up, Rin. Akbab gently called the girl who was still snuggled under the blanket. One arm thrown over her like she had no worries in the world. It's getting late. No response from the younger girl, who kept her eyes closed, pretending to sleep. That was until Akbab used her special Tactica series of loud kisses on Rin's cheek, followed by a call. Wake up, wake up. I know you're faking. In the end, Rin gave in, slowly blinking open with a smile. Busted. You little rascal. I'm going to shower now. Akbab started to pull away to get herself ready after successfully waking the girl up, but Rin caught her arm. Wait, what's our status now? What kind of question is that? Akbab smiled fondly. We're girlfriends since the day you asked. What if people find out? Let them. They can say what they want. It's not like they're in this relationship with us. Hearing it, Rin beamed. She agreed with every word of her. Girlfriend. So when they arrived at the office holding hands, both in good spirits, they didn't pay the slightest attention to the whispers. Whatever people might say of gossip, it didn't matter to them at all. Because this was between the two of them. Akbab wasn't bothered by the attention drawn to how close she Rin was. She simply called everyone into a meeting, signaling that she was officially ready to work. I've called this meeting because we've confirmed that our firm will be pitching for Mr. Fallett's hotel project. I know it's the biggest one we've ever taken on, and that can be intimidating, but this is also a chance to show what we're really capable of. I believe we can turn things around this time and find a way to beat mind space without letting what happened before happen again. Yang glanced uneasily at the empty seat where Terdes usually sat. She had taken the day off. What about the mole? I don't think we have a mole. I believe in our team. I don't want us second-guessing each other. Pat was the one to answer. Yeah, we've been through too much together, Chan added. Still, despite the reassurances, Yang couldn't shake his doubts. Why are you giving me money, Mr. Thee? I wasn't the one who gave you the house design. Terdes stared at the envelope full of cash, completely confused. Just take it. It's an advance. I want you to keep working on this. She fell silent, torn between unease and hesitation. Don't you want your own place? Thee pressed. That made her accept the envelope. But who gave you the design of Mr. Rain's house? You don't need to know that. Just focus on doing your part well. Do you really believe there's no mole in our team? Akbab pulled her brothers aside for a private talk. Not completely, but we don't want everyone to start getting suspicious. Second-guessing one another will only make it harder to work together, Pat answered. Do you have anyone in mind? The two men exchanged looks and nodded. Who? We don't want to point fingers unless we're absolutely sure. For now, just focus on Mr. Fallett's project. Leave the mole to me and Pat. Chan reassured his sister, knowing that he and his older brother had already laid out a plan to expose the mole. What made you bring me to this place? It's fancy. Exactly, that's why I brought you here. The girl gave a sweet smile. My treat today. V didn't want to spoil her girlfriend's mood, so she stayed quiet until she slipped the menu open and saw the prices. Her eyes widened, and a chill ran down her spine. This place is really expensive. Maybe we should go somewhere else. No need. I can pay. I kind of want to spend it all anyway. V frowned. She had never seen Terdes talk about money or spend it this carelessly before. What do you mean? Did you know that the design which won Mr. Rain's pitch, the one from your company, was actually taken from mine? What, really? V was in shock. I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me back then? And how did you even find out? It was from the image you sent me on the day of the pitch. There was a 3D floor plan on the screen. It was almost identical to Rin's design. What? That was Jinta's design. V looked even more stunned and confused. I didn't have anything to do with that project after Mr. Thee brought in a new team. Are you serious? Terdes pressed her lips together. The cheerful smile from earlier faded, replaced by a clear signs of stress and discomfort on her face. The weight of her secret was finally too much to hold, so she confessed. And Mr. The also hired me to spy on Jinta and report back to Mind Space. V froze. She had never expected the person she loved to do something like that. What? I never wanted to do it, PV. I felt awful the whole time. Was it because of the money, Turdies? Her voice was full of disappointment, not just in the girl for making wrong choices, but also in herself for not being able to take better of her. If only she hadn't been buried in family debt. I just wanted to help us out. I wanted to ease your burden. Oh, Turdies. V let out a weary breath, but I never wanted money that came from something like this. I know. That's why I never did it. I didn't hand over the plan to Mind Space. Then how are you going to prove it? Not just to me, but to everyone else once they find out. Especially now that you take me to eat at a fancy place like this. Where would you even get the money unless? Before V could finish her sentence, she jumped in surprise. Two men suddenly joined her and her girlfriend at the table, uninvited. Akbab and Rin had arrived at the Aracide Hotel branch by Ko Freya River to discuss project details with Mr. Fallet. After receiving their visitor badges and access cards, they headed into the elevator to the 19th floor. I'm nervous, Rin murmured. It's just a briefing. We'll be fine. You're not nervous at all. A project this big. I've got Professor Rin with me. What's there to be scared of? Akbab smiled just as the elevator doors opened again without moving a single floor. Mind and these stepped inside. Both parties were startled at the unexpected encounter until these spoke first, smiling. Wow, I didn't think we'd be running into you on this project too. Yes, Akbab replied, also smiling. Looks like we'll be seeing a lot of each other from now on. Well then, here's to another exciting round of competition. Of course, and you don't need to worry, we don't play dirty. Her words landed with sharp precision. They nearly lost his composure. During the entire elevator ride, Akbab never once glanced at Mind. Rin, on the other hand, stared at her the whole time, burning with resentment. It made Mind visibly uncomfortable all the way to the 19th floor. Forward-thinking, modern, stylish. These were the keywords Mr. Fallet presented on the large screen once everyone was settled in the conference room. I want the new branch of the Aracide to be a modern, future-facing hotel with its own unique style, but it must still keep the unique identity of the Aracide brand. A 5-star hotel that always delivers a perfect experience and lasting impressions to every guest. The atmosphere at Jinta Architect right now was not suited for working or for doing anything actually. No matter where one moved, there were whispers, theories, and rumors circling in hushed voices. The conspiracy theory about the salt turning into the worm that caused Jinta to lose the renovation project for Mr. Rain's house spread throughout the company. It created a toxic environment that wore down everyone's mental health, and most importantly, seriously affected the progress of the work. All right, that's enough. Let's clear the air. Pat clapped his hands to get everyone's attention as they gathered in the main hall to brainstorm ideas for the Aracide project. Everyone's been on edge, and I'm guessing it's because we're all worried there's a mole, right? No one spoke up, but their worried expressions said enough. Everyone, Jinta was built on heart and mutual understanding, Akbab reminded them. Chan stepped in to back her up. That's right, so think about this with your heart. Could someone you've worked alongside for years, through all kinds of ups and downs, really be a mold, betraying the company and everyone in it? Some of them exchanged looks, especially Yang, who couldn't stop thinking about Turdies. But Akbab noticed that both of her brothers seemed oddly at ease today, even confident. They clearly didn't believe the mole was someone on their team. So why are we meeting here? Akbab asked after Pat and Chan had invited her and Rin to a meeting outside the office. They ended up at Prim's Cafe, Coffee Club, a quiet spot perfect for private conversations. You'll see, let's wait for the others. Others? That's when Turdies and V walked in, hand in hand, and sat down with them. Rin and Akbab were so shocked they looked like they might rub their eyes just to make sure they weren't seeing things. You two are, Akbab tried to guess based on how close they looked. A couple. Yes, Miss Akbab, We've been together for years, V said. Wow, wait, that copied floor plan. Was that you? Rin's voice shot up in disbelief. Terdes frantically waved her hands in denial and turned to Chan for backup. Here's the deal. They hired Terdes to leak company info to him. What? How long have you known? Akbeb crossed her arms, her expression tense. We started suspecting it from the beginning. Terdes was acting a little strange, Pat answered, speaking as the team lead who had to communicate with his secretary every day. There was no way he wouldn't notice something off about Terdes. So the two of us decided to call her in for a talk. Even before they knew what she was dealing with, Chan and Pat had offered to help. That was when the girl burst into tears and finally admitted they had approached her, though she hadn't accepted anything yet. I told her to take these offer. Because if she didn't, we'd never know who they would go to next. I wanted her to act as a double agent and report back everything he asked her to do. That way he'd be wasting his money, and we'd give her a bonus on top. Akbab looked stunned. Then she raised her voice at her brother. So you're saying we lost Mr. Rain's project pitch because of you two and your plan? Hey, calm down, Chan quickly held up his hands. That had nothing to do with Terdes. She didn't do it. He has another mole in the company. V had stayed quiet all this time, but now lowered her head in disappointment. I never imagined Mr. Thee would go this low. Do you know who the other mole is yet? Rin asked. We do. We're just missing proof, but we're about to catch them red-handed. Everyone wondered how they could possibly pull that off. Even Prim and Jate, who were helping serve drinks that day, leaned in with curiosity. That's enough for today. We'll pick up again tomorrow. Akbab glanced at her watch and called it for the night. Everyone responded. One staff member posted the printed hotel model onto the board as the final task. Yang and Terdes packed up their things. Rin saved her files, shut down her computer, and hurried after Akbab. But she must have been in too much of a rush, because she accidentally left her external hard drive out in plain sight on the table. Someone who had been quietly watching seized the chance. They snapped a photo of the model on the board, then slipped the external hard drive into their bag before hurrying out of the office, completely unaware that everyone was already waiting at the exit. It was Auntie Jum, the company's trusted cleaning lady. Why don't we have a little talk? Pat said to the mole, whose face had gone pale like she'd just seen a ghost. That night, everyone gathered again in the meeting room to review the latest security camera footage they had deliberately set up. On the screen was Auntie Jum's exact movement, and with the evidence in her bag, there was nothing she could say to deny it. Any excuse would only make things worse. Do you want to explain anything to us? Pat asked. Auntie Jum lowered her head, lips pressed tight, caught between fear and guilt. Finally, she confessed in a trembling voice. Mr. Thee asked me to take pictures of everything Jinta was working on and send them to him. I didn't know what was what. My job was just to send they pictures. Then he told me to grab that square thingy connected to the computer too. I really needed the money. She needed it for her granddaughter, who had been raised by her since she was small and was now suffering from a serious illness. Her salary as a cleaner wasn't nearly enough to cover the medical expenses. When someone offered her a big payment, she accepted without thinking about anything else. I get that you were struggling, but what you did ended up hurting all of us, Rin said, disheartened. She couldn't bring herself to be angry at Auntie Jum. The real villain that deserved hatred was thee, who preyed on people's desperation. I'm sorry, Rin, Miss Akbab. Please don't report me. If I go to jail, my granddaughter will have no one left. Akbab let out a deep sigh, as much as she sympathized. Forgiveness wasn't so easy. She looked at her brothers instead, letting them decide since Pat and Chan had been handling this matter from the very beginning. Here's what we'll do. You take that square thing to thee like you were told, but you cannot let him find out you've been caught. Just keep playing along. If you can do that, we'll let this go. Sounds good to you. Auntie Jum was confused for a moment, but if all she had to do was follow instructions and they wouldn't press charges, she considered it extremely generous. She quickly nodded in agreement. And a few days later, the external hard drive Rin had accidentally left behind, along with the model Fo, ended up in these hands. He grinned with satisfaction. Once again, he was ready to crush Jinta Architect into the ground. He brought the draft hotel model straight to mind. You want me to work from this? Yes, but make it more luxurious. This still isn't high-end enough for the Aracide. And where did you get this from? Is it from Jinto again? Mind stared at him, but he didn't flinch. Don't ask. We've already talked about this. Just do what I said. Sorry I didn't give you all a heads up, but we're switching to a new draft and going with this idea instead. Rin and I have made some progress already. We'll need help from the rest of you to finish. So we're tossing away the first design? Yang asked, raising a hand. Not exactly. Think of it as bait for mind space. If they want to cheat, let them take it, Akbab replied with a light smile. I know it's going to be tough these next few weeks, but you'll all be getting an extra year-end bonus. Let's give this pitch everything we've got. Everyone responded with fresh energy and strong spirit. The dark could of suspicion among colleagues vanished once the mole issue was settled. Because of this, all teams worked together efficiently: the research unit, the structural architects, and the interior designers. Over the next month, the work steadily took shape, even finishing ahead of schedule. All right, that's it for today. We'll finish the rest tomorrow. Everyone did a great job. Akbab saw how tired the team looked, yet no one had slacked off, so she let them all leave early. Thanks, but I have a serious question to ask. I think everyone's been wondering for months now. It was Yang, the one who always had questions. What is it? You and Rin, what exactly is your relationship? Akbab raised an eyebrow. We're daddings, why? You really? Couldn't tell, she answered casually, without second thought, and that made everyone cheer. They'd guessed right all along. I told you Miss Akbab wouldn't hide it. Pay up, P. Yang. Ooze, let me wait until payday, okay? Yang laughed awkwardly, then quickly grabbed his things and took off running. Turdies, who must have bet against him, dashed after him, leaving Akbab and Rin watching them with an exasperated look. What should we eat today? I'll cook something for you. Akbab turned to Rin to change the subject. They had just stepped out of the building, heading to a car. HMMMM? Not sure. Rin clung to her arm like sticky candy, pretending to think. When she couldn't come up with anything, she puffed out her cheeks and leaned them toward her partner. Give me a boost of energy first. Akbab poked the puffed cheek until it deflated. Energy boost, done. That means I get to make you work more tonight. Hey, no fair. I'm tired. I'm just gonna go home and cuddle my gorgeous girlfriend instead. Akbab, rang the voice they hadn't expected to hear in front of Jinta Architect. They hadn't noticed Mind was waiting there. Can we talk for a bit? Rin clutched Akbab's arm tightly. Neither of them answered. They walked straight to the car, acting as if Mind was nothing but thin air. But then she called out, Don't you want to know why I took your work 10 years ago? And that made Akbab stop. I want to tell you everything. Will you please hear me out? The young woman glanced at Rin as if to tell her it's all right. Just a moment. I want to end this once and for all. Rin didn't look happy about it, but when she saw the determination in Akbab's eyes, she nodded and released her arm, letting her go off to talk to Mind in private. First, I want to ask you about Mr. Rain's pitch, Akbab began with her question. Why would you go that far again? It was Peethy who gave me the draft and told me to continue the work. I honestly didn't know. I'm sorry, Mind answered with genuine remorse. Akbab didn't reply, just gestured for her to keep going with her explanation. My mom was a mistress in a Chinese household. I was the daughter my father didn't want. But somehow, I ended up the only daughter everyone pressured to care for him when he was sick, she began, recalling a bitter, uncomfortable memory. Taking care of a patient alone is never easy. It never was, and it never will be. Especially one who can barely help himself and always believes he's right. I was studying, working, and taking care of my dad all at once. One day, I saw a poster for a student architecture competition. It said the winner would get a full scholarship to study abroad. I wanted to win. I wanted to prove to my father that the daughter he treated like a servant. Had talent too, maybe then he'd accept me. So when I saw that opportunity right in front of me, I grabbed it quickly. But fate wasn't on Mind's side at that time. The time and focus she should have devoted to the competition were taken away because her father started choking and coughing up blood. What followed was a chaotic crisis due to his critical condition and the many hospital procedures. It drained all her physical strength, mental energy, and thoughts completely. Before she knew it, the submission deadline was closing in fast. I was completely out of options. Then I saw the drawing you'd made. It was beautiful, like something I couldn't possibly match at the time. The thought crossed my mind that it might be my last chance, so I used your work. I knew it was wrong. I knew I had no excuse. I was being selfish. Akbab listened, stunned. She was still angry, but also confused. Why didn't you tell me back then? I couldn't face you. I was ashamed. No, if you had told me, I might have helped. I might have even given you the work without any fuss. We wouldn't have ended up patting each other like this every day. Akbab, I'm sorry. Mind felt pain, regret, and deep sorrow. She shouldn't have done what she did. If I had done the right thing that day, if I have told you first, maybe we'd still be together now, right? That's just wishful thinking. Akbab shook her head. We're not the same anymore, and there's no way to go back and change it. You once said we never really broke up, right? So let me make it clear now. We're done. I don't love you anymore. Mind stood frozen. She wanted to say something to hold on, but there was nothing left to ask for. As for Mr. Fallett's project, let's compete fair and square. I want to see the Mind I once admired again. This pitch was even more packed than Mr. Rain's project. The energy in the room was a mix of anxiety and excitement, though no one seemed as anxious as the Jinta Architect team, who were facing the biggest job of their careers. All right, everyone, deep breaths, no need to panic. Chan tried to encourage the group, though he didn't look like the most encouraging person himself. Talk to yourself, man, look at you. Your knees are shaking. Watching the brothers bicker put everyone in a lighter mood. The team chuckled as they made their way into the event hall. Welcome, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all 11 firms joining us to present your hotel designs for our new project of the Aracide Hotel chain. Thank you. Mr. Fallett opened the event himself. With a box already on stage, ready for the draw. We'll draw lots to decide the presentation order. One by one, the company representatives walked up and reached into the box. Mind Space drew number 6. Jinta Architect drew number 7. This time we're really competing, Mind said as she followed Akbab down from the stage. But it was Rin who answered, already waiting at the bottom. She looked Mind straight in the eye, her gaze steady. You're not just up against P. Akbab, I'm in this too. Mind returned the look with a quiet confidence of her own, one that showed she had no intention of losing.